Hey associates, so this video is quickly going to go over research questions because you need to kind of think about, write a strong research question for you to write that proposal around. And the research question, statement, hypothesis, it's basically that central problem and sort of the importance of that central problem to help you set up and figure out, okay, well, what is going to be the best research design, and why am I bothering with this proposal? And so if you haven't already watched the video on just the research process, make sure to also check that out, because this is just kind of building on that, but talking about the questions in particular. So the best way, you can ask a lot of questions, right? Again, your questions need to be really, systematic. You need to be able to answer them. They need to have true impact. So I'm just going to go through a few examples of bad questions and how you can turn that into a better question. So as you're trying to come up with what your research question is and that issue in your industry and the proposal that you're going to be writing for your final project, definitely let me know, shoot me an email, and I can help you work with your questions if you're not quite sure. But an example of a bad question would be something that's just really descriptive and isn't advancing any knowledge or filling in any gaps. So if your question was something like, okay, the issue in your industry is this decline in pheasant populations. So you ask, well, what is the current state of pheasant populations in Colorado? Well, I mean, this is something you could Google, right? It's not really advancing anything. And maybe you do need to go out and collect this data, but there's a lot of agencies already in place doing that. And I don't know, it definitely would have to be paired with other questions to be really applicable in the field. So instead, for your proposal, to actually advance some knowledge and speak more specifically to the issue in your field, you could try something instead in what ways will urban sprawl, right? So connect it to something happening, right, in the environment across the Front Range impact pheasant populations in Colorado, right? So you're still ultimately, your proposal research the current state of pheasant populations, but now it has more of this emphasis and impact on, okay, there's a change in the landscape that we need to pay attention to, and here's, this kind of area of impact, right? So this is a better question because you're connecting bodies of literature and you're actually helping people extend the knowledge than just telling us this is what the population is. Makes sense? So again, if you find your question is really descriptive and you kind of read it and end up saying okay, that's the answer, that could be a clue for you that you just need to think about more factors that you might want to research to sort of figure that out. All right, another one. This is an example of a close-ended question. So it doesn't really offer any what you call nuance or room to expand. It really is just again, you kind of end with that there's the answer, which isn't that helpful. So do CSU students like the new stadium? I mean, a good question to ask, but you really just end up getting a yes or no. And that's not really that interesting or helpful. So instead, right, you could turn it into and write a proposal around, how do CSU students feel about the new stadium and its changes to campus life, right? So now you're, again, collecting more data, right? You get to know more about how they feel, specifically, how do they feel about it with campus life in particular, right? And so it just kind of opens it up and gives you a lot more room to research and explore and to then be able to, hand over a more complete proposal document to I don't know, the admin, offices, so they could do something with it than just do they like it, right? Another way you can kind of tell if you have a close-ended question that's going to be a little bit too tight is if this could be a Twitter poll, right? I mean, you literally could just post this on Twitter and get the answer. So it's not really a strong technical, research-worthy question that you're going to write a proposal around, because you can just literally tweet it out. In this case, it's a little bit more involved, so you're going to have more involved answers to work with. All right, and this one is just an example of a really vague question, the last really common problem. And so again, like, what are people saying about the Black Panther movie? Okay, cool. Now, I wrote a paper and presented this research. I ended up completing this research project and presented it at the International Communication Association just this past May. And so, yeah, this was like the very, very start. In my head, I was like, huh, I wonder what people are saying about it, right? But it's too vague to really do a full research like proposal on, because like, like there's so many things. Like, what do I even mean by what are people saying? So I had to, specify more specific topics, right? And then connect those topics to like my research field and kind of draw on, those key factors that sort of matter in research. And so I adapted it to specifically how do civic discourses. So now I have this concept of, okay, civic discourse is really like hot button thing that we like to talk about in the field right now, especially with online. And then around race and politics, so now I'm narrowing it, right? So I'm not just, what are people saying? I actually want to know, like, okay, what are they saying about race and politics when they talk about Black Panther? Manifest in online responses. I've also narrowed it to the medium, so I'm not just, eavesdropping on people like at the theater, like I'm actually looking at their online sort of comments to Black Panther. Again, if it's just really vague, find ways and really ask yourself, what do you really want to know about this issue? What do people really want to know and talk about with the issue to kind of expand your questions to be stronger and sort of proposal worthy? All right, so there's a few kind of things that might help, right? So the research question, again, it honestly provides that outline for your paper, right? So if you go back, if this was just the outline for my paper, like, what are people saying of Black Panther? That doesn't give me any direction of the literature that I need to review. It doesn't help me like figure out the organization. Whereas a question like this, now I know I need to do some literature review on civic discourses. I need to find out how people traditionally talk about race and politics. I need to learn about and talk about online responses, right? So now I have an actual kind of outline going. Same with this one. Kind of lost. How are you going to organize this paper? Well, a stronger question. Okay, you can talk about, student engagement and feelings, and you can really focus and talk about the different changes to campus life throughout your paper, right? And then same with this one. You can't, this is literally a tweetable answer, whereas here, you're going to have to research urban sprawl. You can talk about Front Range, and then you can provide the answer. So, a good question is going to give you that outline. So when you draft your questions, just create a really rough outline. It can just be on a note card or a piece of scrap paper, and see, okay, like based on the question you have written, what are you going to write about? What areas do you need to research for the literature in that first half? How do you see this report coming together based on the question at hand? And if you find it to be really, really difficult to accomplish that, then it's probably an indication that your research question isn't concrete enough and it's not specific enough. And so go back and sort of check that you aren't making one of those 3 errors that we just went over. Yeah, good luck. Bye.